Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I'm here with Jason.
Hey, everyone.
How you doing, man?
Doing well. About yourself?
Pretty good, and I'm very excited because today, for the first time ever in history, we have a special guest on the show.
Yay!
So I am very proud to introduce onto Genre Exposure, Chris, the 4K Outlaw.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Thank
Chris.
you guys for having me on.
Absolutely, man. How you doing?
Doing good, guys. How are you?
Awesome.
We're glad to have you here, dude.
So happy you're here.
Happy to be here.
So today we are talking about The Final Girls from 2015, which is your selection.
Yes. When you told me about pick a slasher, this was the first one that came in my mind. So
Cool.
Killer. And it's interesting because it is from 2015, the same year as Muck.
It is.
So I think in the course of talking about this, at least you and me, Jason, we're going to have some compare-contrast going on.
Definitely.
Cool. So since we do have you on and you are a guest, I feel like we need to lean into that a little bit before we get into our usual routine. So
Yeah.
if you're an astute listener to the show, you actually know who Chris is because I've told stories before.
One of our devotees.
Yeah, if you're steeped in the genre exposure lore, you know this. Chris, you were my next door neighbor growing up.
yes, I was,
Hung out
man.
a lot. We watched a lot of horror films.
We watch. It's crazy to think that we're here doing this
Yeah.
now. We like I see we were neighbors and we watched so many horror movies together. When I was a big fan of Halloween, and I've told this before on several platforms, but when I watched Halloween, as soon as I got home, you were the first person I came and talked to about it because I was so excited.
Nice.
I love it. And so you do like, I guess you wouldn't call it podcast, but you do like videos about movies and stuff too.
I started doing YouTube in 2015. Actually, this is one of the first movies I kind of like championed and was trying to tell everybody about as a Blu-ray Outlaw. And then over time, with new physical media coming out, I switched over to 4K Outlaw. And I do basically like unboxings and stuff for new horror movies that are coming out, stuff like that.
Awesome. I'll be sure to throw your TikTok in the show notes, and people can go check that out.
Thank you.
Spread the love, show the love.
Nice.
But otherwise, I want to know what you guys have been watching.
Well, should we talk about a movie that we all watched together?
Yeah, I think so.
We all went to go see Evil Dead Rise.
We did.
And the Evil Dead franchise is very dear to me personally. It's one of the first horror film franchises that I really fell in love with back in the day.
I'd say it's important to all of us.
Yeah. Man. Yes,
Most horror fans, you guys know what I'm talking about. But I was
yeah.
probably like 13 or 14 the first time I saw it. Saw the first Evil Dead, and I thought it was legit scary. And saw the second one, and the second movie is so innovative and so special and so weird and different. I literally, at the end of that movie, and this is not hyperbole, but I felt the same way I felt after watching like a Star Wars film. Because I was especially with that ending, I was so hyped.
Yeah.
And I felt like I'd seen something like new and revolutionary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And long story short, Evil Dead Rise did not affect me the same way that did. I know that's a high bar, but it's still part of the Evil Dead movies, so I got to judge it against those. But okay, so what about you guys? What was your experience with like Evil Dead franchise?
Well, me and Dustin,
this
is our friendship, really.
Yeah.
As far as like horror goes, because I was raised super religious and I was not allowed to watch horror movies, and if I did, I had to hide it.
Oh, dude,
Slip over to my house.
So so Dustin's house was like the place where I got away, and he showed me Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness the same night.
Nice.
So that was our big
great night.
Yeah, great. And he even made an RPG, and I remember I told everybody. I got a friend that makes games. I was so proud of him. But
it was was it like RPG Maker, that computer program where you could make your own video game?
Right.
Yeah, I made an Army of Darkness game as a kid.
That's awesome.
And pulled clips from the movie and stuff.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So and I was also, where I was raised really religious, I was kind of scared of scary movies, especially ones that delved into demons and paranormal.
Oh yeah.
So Ash was like a cool mediator to not make me as scared. So like I said, I saw 2 and Army of Darkness the same night with you, and they're 2 of my favorite movies of all time. 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Hell yeah.
And then I watched Evil Dead alone and it scared the shit out of me.
How old were you guys when you watched it?
Gosh, how old were we?
That would have been like 97 or 8, so 13. I would have been 13.
I was about to say, same age as me.
About the same time.
Rite of passage.
Yeah. It was such a monument. There's, like I said, when I left Evil Dead Rise, and the more I thought about it, it was like I didn't hate the movie, but there was such a bar that is set with that franchise that nothing's ever going to reach it, because you're not ever going to get those feelings back when you were a teenager or a kid. Yeah. And that nostalgia carries a lot for me. So
yeah, because it's not just about the gore, which this movie had in spades. It's a very gory movie, so if you're after some cool kills and some gore, you're in luck. But
all the effects were just like great.
Sure.
On point.
But it was just also kind of lifeless. It was like every other movie. Because like in the original films, it's like the camera itself was a character, and there's none of that uniqueness and innovation in this at all.
I appreciated they didn't try to do like the reboot thing. That it literally is just like another movie in the series, and you can just slot it in there and it exists.
Right.
Which that's cool. But it's like at the same time, it's like they tried to hit all the things. Like they made sure they said, "Oh, you'll be dead by dawn." "Oh, I'll swallow your soul."
Yeah.
Which I like that.
Which it is cool, but it's like the reason Evil Dead 2 is so monumental, like you're saying, Jason, is like it did all this new shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like blew people's minds.
Yeah, and the final girl even says, "Come get some." I mean, come on. Make your own new line. Come on.
And it's weird to me, too, because like my whole perception of the franchise is odd, because like my actual start, right? Because Chris, your start is I showed it to you, so then it's like, where did I find it? I had a friend show me Army of Darkness first.
Weird.
And then I went backwards
to
Evil Dead.
So what was it like watching Army of Darkness first, not knowing...
I mean, you kind of just get it because it
go
sets
in
it up.
with it.
It's like, oh, this weird stuff happened. He
That's
got
true.
warped into the past.
Yeah, it does a good job of that, yeah.
So I've always enjoyed more like the freneticness and like this kind of comedy mixed up with horror aspect about it. So
yeah.
Real quick, I know we're going to go long on this, but it's whatever.
Fine.
It's cool.
Whatever.
How do you guys feel about the remake from, was it 2013, I think?
I personally found that underwhelming. There's certain actors in there I like. It had an okay look. You know, it had that kind of a grimy Groundhouse kind of look.
Oh, yeah.
Some cool kills. But again, it was just a pale imitation of the original, I think.
What about you, Chris?
Well, I actually didn't see that until, like a few years after it came out, and I actually really liked it. Again, though, it's a weird thing because I have to separate the two. You know, I can't, like, it would be almost like if I tried to rank the entire franchise, the newer ones would be on the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Just because they don't reach that level that the original ones do. Mm-hmm. I did like the remake, though. I liked the remake quite a bit. The opening to the remake, I think, was one of the best openings of a horror movie really in a long time. Right away, I knew, like, okay, this is serious. This isn't, fun or whatever.
It does have a cool opening. I'll give it that, yeah. I'm more of a detractor on it. I don't know. It's just never really sat right with me. Especially, like, I have a lot of narrative hangups with it, like with Mia, and that she's, like, basically this unrepentant drug addict.
Yeah.
And she's so, like, not likable as a character the whole film. And then, like, they deliver you to the end where she hits that flip. That's like the Evil Dead flip that you do where suddenly there's, like, a big action hero.
Yeah.
But it's like when I got to that point, I was like...
You didn't really care.
I don't care, though.
Whereas Ash is kind of a goof. Even in the first movie. You know, he's just kind of a goofy, love-struck guy.
You like him right away, and then it carries you.
It's weird. It's like, I like the new one, too. But it's if I'm going to go watch an Evil Dead, I'm going to go watch... the original or the show. I like the show a lot too.
Oh, the show is great. Yeah.
It's just weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like it's just a weird vibe. When I left, I was like, it's not a bad movie, and I didn't hate it. There's definitely way worse movies I've seen, but it just don't feel the same.
I definitely liked Rise better than the remake, but it's still not to that level of the old ones, and I really don't know if it ever can be because like it made me think of last episode, Jason. When we talked about Nightmare on Elm Street really briefly, and I'm pointing because the poster's staring at me right now, but
we're all looking at the wall. What?
We talked about how like anyone replacing Freddy, like it's hard because it's always going to be Robert Englund to us, and it's hard to get past that.
Right.
And so Evil Dead is kind of like that for me. Like Evil Dead is Ash and his story, and it's cool.
Sam Raimi directing.
It's cool to tell other stories in that universe, sure, but like it's never going to hit the same if it's not him.
Yeah,
and I hate that, but that's kind of how I feel.
That's the way it is.
Especially when they're still alive.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Yeah, right.
I know he's getting up in years, but like, do something animated or something crazy like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right,
Jason, what have you been watching on your own?
Oh, okay. Well, I saw another recent film, Renfield. Nicolas Cage movie. Kind of a high concept. I think you all know what it's about. Set in the modern day, and Renfield is still his servant, but he feels put upon and exploited by this toxic, overbearing boss.
As someone that plays a lot of Vampire the Masquerade, this is on point. So,
yeah. No, I like that premise. That's a fun premise.
Oh, yeah.
And the movie starts really well because he's in like the support group and stuff. And we get this fun flashback where it uses footage from the original Dracula, but it's got Nicolas Cage instead of Bela Lugosi.
no.
So you're seeing scenes at the castle, and it's the guy who plays Renfield, whose name I can't remember, meeting Nicolas Cage.
Sorry, my man.
Meeting Nicolas Cage and like them at the opera and stuff like that, and that's really fun. But man, it was not a good movie for me. It's very very weak. Nicolas Cage was great. He's really hamming it up. He's going to town. He's having a good time, and he's enjoyable. So whenever he's on screen, it's pretty entertaining. But otherwise, I just didn't care for any of the other characters.
That's what I heard from a lot of people.
It's a very messy story. It's just a lot of CG blood and stuff. Like there's this scene inside this apartment. I like the outside the apartment, like the quad outside, the courtyard. That's the word I'm looking for. And they're fighting, and he's ripping all these people apart, and there's fake blood flying everywhere. And then it kind of pulls back, and there's no blood anywhere whatsoever, you know. And there would have been all the carnage he was causing. And it's one of those things that just takes me right out of the movie. And at one point, they're like being chased by all these corrupt police officers. Like the whole police force is corrupt, and they're on the run. Renfield and this lady cop. But then the very next scene, they're like having breakfast in the middle of the day at some diner, not hiding out or anything. And it's like, okay.
Was it edited by the same person that edited Muck?
That could be. I'm going to look that up.
Have you seen the movie Muck?
I have not.
Okay, we're going to make a lot of jokes about it because it was a film.
Yeah, it was Dustin's last pick.
Yeah.
So I cannot endorse Renfield. It was a cool idea, but it just didn't do it for me. I think I gave it 1 star on Letterboxd.
Oh, sad times.
Oof.
Yeah.
I was really pulling for it because I loved Cage's look as Dracula.
Yeah, and again, he's fun, but he's not in it enough, and it's not when he's not there, it's lifeless.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. How about you? You want to go?
Yes, we'll save our special guest for last.
Yeah.
I like it.
Best for last.
Well, I've got 2 to talk about, so maybe I'll do one now, and then I have one that's relevant to our episode, so I'll save that.
Yeah, see how Dustin just loves to hog everything,
yeah.
and breaks all the rules, does what he wants.
See, I made the rules, and now I break them. That's how it works. So I have to talk about Beau Was Afraid, obviously. Ari Aster, fucking yes. 3 for 3. I loved it to death. It's so good. I think it's going to polarize a lot of people, because it's not quite a horror film. I know there's definitely horror elements in it, but I think for most people, if you're like a diehard horror fan and you're like, yes, Hereditary was the scariest thing ever, hitting up the next one, this isn't that film. It's much more of a drama, elements of black comedy, very like surreal and psychological. And it hit me really hard because, you know, Beau is afraid, and a lot of the film is about his anxiety and the way that like his life and his upbringing has made him just this nervous wreck that's afraid of everything. And then he gets put in this. I don't want to spoil too much because like, it's really the unfolding of the narrative that matters. This is one I would love to do an episode for, but I really think it has to have the time for people to see it first because you got to have the experience. But it's just like Joaquin Phoenix kills it. It's such a unique character, especially for him to play. When you think of like other people that he's been in films and stuff, and it's just deep on his mental state and his anxiety and everything he's gone through. And it's one of those things like. Again, there's not like overt, like scary parts. There's no demons or anything like that. There's a weird monster at one point, but it's kind of more of like, is that even real? You don't know. But it has the same things from Midsommar and Hereditary, where it's like I guess the emotional trauma is what I'm going to say. Like when something happens and the character is sad, and like you're sitting there watching it and you feel it, like you feel your heart sink, and it makes your chest tighten, and you're just like, dude. This is so rough, and I feel this. I feel them feeling this in this moment.
Okay.
So it's everything he's been doing in all his films, just continuing.
All right.
And I loved it, and it's amazing. I can't recommend it enough.
It's quite the endorsement.
I'll keep it brief because I want people to just see it and experience it.
Yeah, I hope to catch it next week.
Yeah, same here. I've heard nothing but great things about it. So.
Yeah, I love it.
Sweet.
All right, Chris, what do you have?
Well, before we went and saw Evil Dead Rise, me and you went and watched The Pope's Exorcist.
Yes, we did.
And I had absolutely no I had no like expectations for it, so maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much. I know that
you asked me, and I was like, "Fuck it, why not?"
Yeah, this time of year, I try. If it comes out, I'm going to support it. I want horror to do well, and I actually really enjoyed it. I had a better experience with that than I did Evil Dead Rise. As crazy as that may sound.
Well, I saw it's done well, and it's getting a sequel, I think. So
really,
yeah.
I thought it was. There's so many Exorcist movies, and they get kind of like lost in translation, and everything is compared to the original Exorcist.
Of course,
and you can't do that. But I mean, I thought it was really good. I mean, they did a good job with the Exorcist part, which is not like overwhelming. They did a great job with the kind of like the politics, and they didn't like hide the fact that the Catholic Church has a lot of like
infighting and stuff. Yeah,
weird stuff happening on
that was actually my favorite part of it. I think.
Yeah, I found that to be really I don't want to like spoil, but like the story of like what troubled Father Amarth was awesome. I thought, well, not awesome, like it's horrible, but
yeah,
I don't know. It had a really cool vibe, and I love the music. I love that the dude is fighting demons, riding around on a moped.
Yes,
I mean that was awesome. Drinking whiskey. I was just waiting for him to light up a cigarette and just but I really liked it. I did. Again, I had no expectations, so I think that's why I liked it so much.
Yeah,
so I'm happy to hear that there's a sequel.
I was kind of more average on it, but yeah, like. I expected to go in and just hate it, but to it actually like get me up to like, yeah, that was all right. I didn't mind that. I was impressed. And I think like Russell Crowe, like he really sells the character.
He does,
well.
man. He does a great job. I think too, it's like when I watched Evil Dead Rise and it was over, I didn't really think about it that much, and I'm still thinking about the Pope's Exorcist. There was lots of little seeds planted, so I really enjoyed it.
And if they're doing a sequel, that ending they really lay it on a hook for one. So yeah.
Which I didn't know any of that stuff that they
Oh yeah, he has like thousands and thousands of documented cases in real life they could draw on. It's kind of the same appeal as like The Conjuring.
With the Warrens
and stuff.
So you're a huge Exorcist fan, right? What's your opinion on the upcoming remake? Are you cautiously optimistic?
Doesn't it have a title now? Isn't it The Exorcist Believer or something like that?
Yeah. So is it an actual remake or is it like a pseudo sequel?
It's a rebootquel. It's going to be a continuation only to the first film.
Okay.
Oh, man.
I don't mind ignoring 2, but I actually quite like 3.
I don't have that. I don't have that. Like, I was so invested and scared and everything when they announced that they were going to be doing the Halloweens. So I can kind of sit back with The Exorcist a little bit. I don't have that kind of like nostalgia.
Right,
I love The Exorcist. It's one of my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. But
you don't have that attachment where it's like if they get it wrong, it's not going to like crush you.
I'm going to be upset, but I mean, I'm not going to like cry about it. Blumhouse is real hit or miss with me. It feels like for every one good they have, a couple turds follow.
I feel the same way.
So
for sure,
I'm going to remain optimistic, but I don't. I mean, this way. I loved the Halloween season, the last 3 years or 4 years when Halloween 18 Kills and Ends came out. Because it kind of was like, oh, cool, there's a Michael Myers movie out while it's Halloween time.
Sure.
So I'm kind of, I'm happy that we're going with The Exorcist around Halloween time. So I'm really happy about that. And plus, there's a Friday the 13th in October. So
right. Yeah. Ooh,
we'll have to do something.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Make some plans.
So, Dustin, you said you had another movie?
I do. I have a little continuation follow up on the last episode because I made a promise and
of course
I got to keep my promises. So. The director of Muck, Steve Walsh, he made a second film, Kill Her Goats. It's technically supposed to be the prequel to Muck that then they kind of scrapped and remodeled into this.
But it's in the Muck verse, right?
But it's in the Muck verse, and it's a Muck tale. So I don't want to be long on this. I'll just try to keep it as brief as possible. I gave it 1 star. I probably should have given it a half star.
This is not something Dustin does lightly. He does not give out 1 stars lightly.
I'm the 4-star king.
Sometimes mistakenly, but not lightly.
I've noticed on your letterbox.
Yeah. It's basically everything that Muck is again, but with a lesser budget. I don't know that for sure. I didn't look at the numbers. It's real relevant, but it looks cheaper, and it's all the same stuff. They've got Kane Hodder. He's this cool character called Goatface in this awesome like Goat Man costume with a chainsaw. At one point, he even has like a double chainsaw where it's like 2 chainsaws on a stick.
Like Darth Maul?
Like Darth Maul. And it's fucking awesome, and it's like sparking and going crazy. However, there's like one good kill at the start with that, and then like there's barely any Kane Hodder. it's mostly like 90 minutes of Playboy playmates in their underwear walking around.
Are they
sign me up?
That is the best thing about Muck.
That was the best thing about Muck. See, my conclusion on Muck last time was like, if Chris and me went to go rent a movie, and this was the movie we rented, we would have been like, jackpot. Doesn't matter that it sucks.
I can't respect that.
I said there's that age, like when you were a kid renting movies, where it was like, how much boob is in this movie, though?
Yeah.
I learned more from Terra Firma watching with you than I ever did in any of my sex ed classes.
Oh yeah, that's a trauma classic. But yeah, so it's like the plot's like it's very convoluted, and it's like this girl named Audra is going back to her hometown of West Craven, the same location where Muck takes place. Shout out to West Craven. And she's buying a house, and the house has like a legacy, and there's a curse on it, and people go crazy that live there.
And there's a goat man.
There's a goat man that's killing people with no connection to the plot, and it becomes this dumb thing about like family inheritance, and there's a plot to like kill people, and you don't know if it's like it's that thing or is it a supernatural thing, and then like the plot goes just off the rails for no reason, and she starts killing people even though she was the lead, and it's like, was it the curse or?
Just go crazy.
It makes no fucking sense. And the more I watched it, I was like, I really think this guy just needs to direct like porn or like softcore or something, because like he's good with like the cheesecake scenes.
Yeah,
but
just go for horror porn.
Yeah.
But as far as like making a narrative or building emotion or feelings or anything,
I'm willing to forgive a lot more if there's porn in it.
for sure. I guess this is my conclusion: is I gave Muck like a 3-star, I think, and that was like a generous 3-star, just because it made me remember of that time being a kid looking for boobies in movies and just being a little perv.
Yeah.
What do you mean? We still do it. What are you talking about? Right.
But so I gave that one a little bit of a pass because it was kind of fun, and it's funny to talk about Muck even like once you see it. However, this is now the second feature. This is time's gone on. So my first thing going in is like, how have you improved? How has your filmmaking grown or changed or anything? And it kind of got worse compared to Muck. So do not proceed past Muck. What I'm here to say. I'm sorry, my guy that made this film. It is what it is.
Yeah.
We're always honest, and that's how
straight shooters, if nothing else.
That's how it's got to go. It exists for some people, and I'm sure some people dig it.
Oh, yeah.
And if you do, that's awesome.
More power to them.
Yeah.
All right.
But I do own the Blu-ray, so.
Of course you're committed.
All right. So I guess that brings us to our feature.
Yes. Talking about The Final Girls from 2015, directed by Todd Strauss Schulson. I guess we'll begin like we always begin. The genre is horror, and obviously it's a slasher because we're talking about slashers. I think it's good to put in that this is more of the like meta-style slasher owing back to Scream, which we kind of set up last time was a thing.
Mm-hmm. And also, more importantly, it's also a comedy.
Yes.
Yeah. A well-done horror comedy at that, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I would agree.
I'll hit you guys with the synopsis.
Do it.
A young woman grieving the loss of her mother, a famous scream queen from the 1980s, finds herself pulled into the world of her mom's most famous movie. Reunited, the women must fight off the film's maniacal killer. Nice and simple.
Yep, succinct.
Sounds like a slasher. Must be a slasher. Seems good. So, where to begin on this? I think I wanted to set this up a little bit because I have to always bring stupid research into this. Before we go like deep into the plot and stuff, I wanted to talk about just the trope of the final girl. I know we mentioned it a little last time.
Very good.
But
yes.
This film kind of hinges on that completely. So I pulled the old definition. I'll just throw it out at you guys. So the final girl is a trope in horror films, particularly slashers. It refers to the last girl or woman alive to confront the killer, ostensibly the only one left to tell the story of what happened. The final girl has been observed in many films, including The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Alien, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, and so forth. And this was a term that was coined by Carol J. Clover in her book Men, Women, and Chainsaws.
Classic book if you haven't read it.
Yes, it's from 1992. Clover suggested that in these films, the viewers began by sharing their perspective with the killer, as they moved about and eliminated each person one by one. But over the course of a film, they experience a shift in identification to the final girl as she sort of rises and subsumes that role and moves to take down the slasher at the finale.
Yes.
The original meaning of saying, like, quote, final girl, as described by Clover, is quite narrow. A lot of the book that she wrote was focused on, like, the slashers of the 1970s and the 1980s, which we talked about last time. That's kind of the golden age for all of this. And so the definition that Clover put out was the final girl is a woman who is the sole survivor of a group of people, typically youths, who's chased by a villain and gets a final confrontation where she kills him herself or is saved at the last minute by someone else, usually a person of authority like a police officer. And the character has such a privilege because of her implied moral superiority. For example, she is the one that will refuse sex, drugs, or other such behavior, unlike her more adventurous friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty on point. I think we're all good with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the emphasis of how the slasher films were always so kind of puritanical and fairy tale like.
For sure. And then this has kind of like evolved through the years too. Like there are earlier examples of this where before we would coin the term final girl. So according to Clover, like going by that definition, someone like Lila Crane from Psycho, she's an example of a female character in a story that survives to the end, but she's not really a final girl because she lacks that moral purity.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saved by Loomis there at the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's not really like a point of authority. He's more of like the love interest.
And not Dr. Loomis.
No.
Not to be confused with Halloween.
Not at all. No. But in Halloween, Laurie is saved by someone else in the first film. But it's a different vibe because we see her go through that transformation to like take the action against Michael.
She's definitely qualifies as a final girl.
Mm-hmm. And then especially when you get into the sequels and on.
Yeah, for sure.
And she was a final girl in a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah. More than just Halloween, for sure. And then going forward, there are more recent horror movies and shows and stuff that kind of challenge this idea. Because that's like anything. Like, how did slashers change? Scream kind of took it meta. So how do you evolve on this? There's been, properties where they've kind of tried to, like, challenge this question of, like, what is the final girl? A good example is Buffy Summers and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She kind of... Yeah. Just take a minute to... Buffy. She kind of subverts that trope because though she fulfills that role of being like the final person that rises up to slay the monster, she's kind of the opposite of that definition. She is like the sexy cheerleader. She's the beautiful blonde, and she does like, hook up with the boys and stuff, but she still is the one that rises up in the end. Mm-hmm. So it kind of questions like what part of that is important in a way.
Right. Yeah, things have gotten a little bit less puritanical over the years.
And this is the last little point I want to squeeze in from Clover's whole book and everything. It's a good book, you should pick it up, but to truncate it. One of the core premises of this whole theory is that the audience identification is unstable and fluid across gender lines, particularly in slashers. And that's because that during the final confrontation, Clover argues that the final girl becomes masculinized through phallic appropriation, such as taking up a weapon, the knife, the chainsaw, and in turn using that against the killer that has been terrorizing them across the film. Mm-hmm. And so this phenomenon causes the male audience to identify with the young female character in a genre that's ostensibly more male-oriented traditionally.
Okay, yeah, that's one interpretation.
Just some food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
Keep us a little scholarly, our like 10% we need to be.
Have you guys ever heard of the movie called Cherry Falls?
Yeah, love it.
Where it's only the virgins are the ones who are being killed.
Yeah. Right, they tried to invert the stereotype.
It's fun.
Cool, so I think now I've shielded us enough from the film, so let's get in.
All right, let's do it.
So we open on our main character, right? Max Cartwright, played by Taissa Farmiga. Cool to see her leading a horror film like this.
Yeah, but before that, we also open with it's a pretty good take on the vintage slasher movie trailer.
Oh, yeah, there is, because she's watching the trailer in the car.
Yeah.
And that's our kind of inroad. Yeah,
yep, yeah. It's a trailer for Camp Bloodbath. And the killer is named Billy, we get from the voiceover, which must be a Black Christmas reference.
It has to be.
Has to be. There's a lot of references in this film.
And he's wearing some sort of a totem-looking mask.
Really cool looking.
Yeah, and the trailer has like all that fake scratching on it and everything and fading and stuff. But I mean, it looks pretty good.
Yep. Very Friday the 13th vibes, because he's got kind of that bulky physique, and it is a summer camp.
Yep. And then, we find out that she's watching it on her phone. It's being watched by Max Cartwright.
And she's watching it because it stars her mother, Amanda Cartwright, played by Malin Ackerman.
Mm-hmm. And Max is Tessa Farmiga, who has done a lot of horror work. She was in the American Horror Story seasons, several of those. Yeah, The Nun.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Getting another one of those, too.
Yeah.
She's a little sister of Vera Farmiga, who, of course, was in the Conjuring movies and the
Bates Motel.
I
want to keep it slasher-esque related.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. But so Amanda's at a audition, right, for a film. And Max is just kind of waiting on her in the car. But when she returns, she's sort of downtrodden because she's pretty sure she didn't get the part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And her main thing of being upset is that every audition she goes to, she gets typecast because she played Nancy in this Camp Bloodbath film.
Yep.
Which Nancy, another reference.
Yes.
Classic final girl character.
Mm-hmm. And she tells her daughter, it's never been a slasher movie because she thinks that it keeps her from getting all those roles.
Yeah, holds her back.
Now, I do take offense here. Mm-hmm. I must take offense. Point of order. Okay, I could see, actors who've done a little horror. They want to branch out and do something different. Yeah. They want some challenging, dramatic roles. But at the same time, it's if you're a working actor, horror fans love you, and we want to see you over and over and over again. Yeah. So, it may not be the most dramatically satisfying roles all the time, but it's going to keep food on your table. Yes. And horror fans are there for you.
Yeah, think about conventions and stuff. How much money they make.
Yeah, we don't forget. Yeah. Everyone else forgets. How many people have won Academy Awards and we never see them again in another movie?
For sure.
Casual fans don't care, but horror fans,
we care.
You've done one good movie 60 years ago. We're gonna flock to the conventions just to see you.
That's when you get stuff like it's the guy that played the kid Jason.
Yeah,
in the one movie. And,
right.
But it's awesome.
He's made a career out of it.
But it's awesome, and he's a cool guy. So it's right, for sure.
So it's kind of obvious that they're kind of on hard times, but they seem to have a good relationship, and they're signaling along in the car and everything together.
It's really sweet. They actually feel very much like a mother-daughter.
Yeah, they do. It had a lot of heart. The opening scene, I felt too. You could believe. Yeah, because who doesn't want the other electric bill out the window?
Right,
for sure. Yeah,
I bought it too. She's a cool mom too.
And then the song they listen to that's kind of their song is Betty Davis Eyes.
Yes,
I love that song.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I had a fun note I dug up about that. Originally, they wanted it to be Madonna's Like a Prayer.
Betty Davis Eyes.
And they didn't think they could get it, and they actually wrote Madonna and asked her directly and was like, "This is the movie. This is what we're doing. Would you help us out with getting this song?" And she was she wrote him back and she said that that's the one song she won't license out to me and stuff. But there was, hold on, there was one movie that she actually, it was in, and maybe that was a label thing or something, but.
Was that the one used for Pepsi though?
It might have been.
That could be the reason.
Oh, it was in Never Been Kissed from 1999.
Oh, okay.
So even though it was in that, she was like, no, I don't license it out anymore. It was off the table, and then they kind of worked their way around to Betty Davis Eyes.
I think that's better anyway.
Yeah. I think it definitely fit that movie.
Mm-hmm. Plus it references Betty Davis, who's horror adjacent. Yeah. She's definitely done some horror roles,
And some of her roles are kind of in the precursor on the build-up to the slasher genre, so...
Yeah, right. Whatever happened to Baby Jane, that's a great one.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
That's just a disturbing, creepy movie. It's so good. So Max spills a drink on her mom's headshots, and they fly on the floor, and her mom gets distracted, and they crash. And the CG here is a little iffy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is the one spot I'm going to knock this film. This crash is ooh, it does not look good.
And it didn't need to be that extravagant either. No. Yeah. It could have been off screen. We know they crash. We don't need to see...
Have the sound and cut the camera and show a tire rolling or something.
Yeah, we don't need all
I didn't see it coming. So I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was it was emotional for me. I was like, wow, that's a really out of nowhere...
The editing and the pacing is really good because there's no way you're going to expect it if you're going in blind.
If it just wasn't for that iffy effect, it would have been that much more effective.
Which is sad because I'm going to put this out ahead of everything. The rest of the effects throughout the film are pretty great, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So we get a little bit of a time jump. It's 3 years later. Mm-hmm. And Max is recovering from her loss. And she's in college, right? These are definitely college kids. Yeah.
Are they?
Aren't they?
I don't know.
Or was it high school? I got the impression it was college.
I don't know if we're ever told.
They kind of old for high school kids. But I mean, again, that's also a
Isn't
horror
that
trope. Yeah.
an 80s slasher?
Yeah, that's true.
I really don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the plot. I
guess it is irrelevant.
I had a little question mark there because I didn't really know.
They're definitely a movie club, so
Yeah.
we didn't have those in high school.
They're all very well versed on
Right,
their
that's
films
true.
and stuff.
Yeah, good point. She's hanging out with one of her friends, Gertie, played by Alia Shawkat. Shawkat? I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name, but
Sure.
she's also great. Of course, she was maybe in Arrested Development.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the very much horror-adjacent Green Room.
I fucking love Green Room.
She made a good punk in that, too.
Yeah.
I believed her character.
She sold it.
Yeah.
And then Duncan, played by Thomas Middleditch.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's been in, I can't place what he's been in, and for some reason I didn't look it up.
He reminded me of Randy from the
Yeah.
Scream movies. He definitely had that Randy vibe.
He is the horror
Yeah.
nerd. Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that's that is Duncan. Yeah, he steps in. It's Chris was the other character I was thinking of that I
Yeah,
messed
Chris
up.
is the hunky one.
That's Alexander Ludwig. And he's sort of the Max kind of has a crush on him, but we set up right away like what he had a girlfriend and they just broke up and
Yeah.
it's kind of like tumultuous and in the mix.
Right.
But yeah, then Duncan comes in, which is Gertie's stepbrother.
Stepbrother,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he is our Randy, like you said, Chris. Yeah.
But I never saw Gertie get stuck in anything, so I'm not really sure if she was actually his stepsister.
I knew you were going to bring that up when I watched the film. I was like, oh, he's going to make the fucking joke. Michael's not here, so if someone has to do
I
it.
gotta do it. I'll take it up.
Yeah, but he is like versed and steeped in all horror knowledge and horror trivia.
I actually wrote a note down here and underlined it. I wonder if she ever got stuck in the dryer or anything.
And he's real excited to see Max because it's the anniversary of Amanda's death, and they're having like a showing in honor of her double feature of both Camp Bloodbath films.
Yep. And she's trying to get Max to go, but Max is being like, I don't know.
Because she's never even watched it.
That would be a tough dilemma to be
That
in.
would be, and that's something that made me think too. It's like, what is that like? Especially if you have a parent that's super famous and has been in all these movies. That's got to be weird.
And kind of like what she died, one of the last things you talked about was this movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then notably, it's kind of set up from the start, that her character isn't the final girl in the film, so she does die in the film. So to have experienced her death in real life, and then they're asking you to go watch her die in a movie, that's tough.
Yeah. So then they decide to go. They're at this theater, which must be some cool repertory theater because there's like a poster for Fright Night.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorites. And the posters for the movies look good too. The fake movies, Camp Bloodbath. They look like legit.
I'd
80s.
buy it, yeah.
Yeah, right.
As they're walking up there, that's when we also meet Vicky, which is Chris's ex-girlfriend.
Right.
Who's a little possessive, little stalkery. She's got a new guy, but she's clearly still hung up on him.
She's your typical vapid hottie.
Yeah. Oh, and she's played by Nina Dobrev.
And she actually reminded me of Charisma Carpenter from Buffy.
Yeah,
playing a very Cordelia-like character.
Yeah, she's got that vibe for sure.
And they keep doing the thing, because they keep reinstating how weird Duncan is. Mm-hmm. Like, he's kind of socially awkward, and he's, like, tripping over the red velvet ropes and stuff like that. And
I had a note on that one, too.
Okay, what's your note?
That was, like, not scripted. He accidentally did that, and they liked it, so then they had him...
Oh, okay.
They kept it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's apparently the whole shoot, there was a lot of stuff where they would kind of ad-lib little moments or scenes, and they just kept them in the film.
Yeah, there's some outtakes at the end that kind of verify that, yeah. But it's also like, I don't know, it's a little lazy too, because horror fans are always the awkward geeks and stuff like that. And okay, here's another one. I mean, okay, yes, it's true. But I mean, it doesn't.
Jason, go to a mirror and look at yourself. We are this character.
Fair enough. Fine.
Yeah, so they get her there. They're all settling in. We have a wide, diverse cast of people that have come out to watch this movie, which is cool.
Yep. There's some obvious fans out there, and then there are people who are there just, for whatever. Oh, this is neat. It's an old movie.
I wish they actually done stuff like this at movies.
Yeah. Like big experience
like
things?
marathons, like a Phantasm marathon where you can go watch all 5 or whatever.
If you're close enough to a cool theater.
Yeah.
Like the New Beverly in L.A. or something like that.
If you live somewhere that's not Kentucky like we do.
Dude.
Dude, back in the 90s, the Kentucky Theater was like that.
I know that they run some during like the Halloween season. You can see Halloween and stuff.
They still do, but back then it was actually on film.
Yeah.
And every weekend, both Friday and Saturday, there was a different movie at midnight, and it was always horror or cult. Stuff from John Waters to Friday the 13th. It was so awesome. It was a great time.
I miss midnight releases and midnight movies, man.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, so the movie starts, and Max is obviously emotional seeing her mom on the screen, as one would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She starts to get kind of overwhelmed, I think.
Yeah. And we get some backstory in the movie for the character of Billy. And it's classic slasher film stuff because they play a prank on him. And
pretty nasty one. They bully him into an outhouse and then throw firecrackers in.
Firecrackers in, yeah. It's like in 1957, and he runs out and he's like, oh. But it reminded me of a mixture between like maybe Friday the 13th and The Burning.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Classic.
Which is funny because The Burning really, it could be a Friday the 13th film if you just linked it up.
And there are some assholes in the theater, and they're like drinking and smoking and shit like that. And a fire breaks out.
Well, at least they weren't bringing little kids in there to watch it.
Dude.
Man.
Yeah. We went to go see Evil Dead Rise. There's like people bringing in, what was she, 5, 6, maybe?
Yeah, she was way too young.
Okay, not just that. When Chris and I went to see Pope's Exorcist, they brought a little girl in there, and that had like a kid being demonically possessed, like cursing at his mother and like grabbing her breasts and stuff.
What the hell? What is with these
That's
parents?
where we live, dude.
I mean, I'm not a parent. I think I would be kind of permissive if I were, but not that permissive.
Yeah.
That's a little much.
Now, with Pope's Exorcist, I worried like how many people there were like, this is like a documentary basically. We're like, we're teaching our kids about the spiritual warfare that's going on. But
I mean, even if you're giving them like an iPad and earphones, which you shouldn't at the movies, they're still going to look up at the screen and see the shit going on.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, don't do that. Keep your kids at home. Get a babysitter, or wait 2 weeks for it to come out on streaming because the window is much more narrow these days.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid talked the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of kids in there. Yeah.
And man, the gore is gnarly in that too. So I was like, ooh.
And it's all about a family. It's about a mother killing her children. Is that really the one you want to take your kids to?
This is what happens if you're bad.
Yeah, you're just going to give them ideas.
Yeah.
The fire breaks out.
We get a weird like Rube Goldberg kind of thing where it's like a dude flicks his cigarette and some ashes drop, and then we see the guy drop the bottle of liquor
and it rolls. Yeah. And it catches the curtains on fire, and they're kind of freaking out. Everybody's trying to get somewhere. And so apparently a fan dressed as Billy brought a real machete to this theater because Max grabs it from him and then starts hacking through the canvas of the screen.
Right. Well, they asked Duncan, is there another way out? And he says there's like you can go behind the screen and get out backstage that way.
Right.
Makes sense.
So then we get kind of a Purple Rose of Cairo moment.
Kind of reminded me of Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
That golden ticket he had.
Yeah, and I'm forcing you to put a Woody Allen movie into the...
Okay. Gosh, should I admit this right now? I will admit this right now. I kind of like a lot of Woody Allen films.
It's fine. So. I think it's fine.
There you go.
can divorce the art from the artist. It's okay.
Canceled. See ya. Oh, Chris, you're our first and last guest. Thanks for coming.
So they're cutting through the screen, they're running through it, trying to find the exit, and they find themselves in the middle of a forest in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. Most strange.
And everything's very, very technicolor.
Yeah.
Suddenly.
Very surreal, heavenly.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of standing around going, what? Huh? Did the theater burn down? What's going on? But then we see a VW bus coming down the road, which is what we saw in the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're blasting Mickey.
Yep. Yep, they sure are.
Mickey, you're so...
Yeah. And they stop and they ask for directions to the camp.
And it is the cast of the film.
Yeah, and everybody, all of our characters know this, and they're just sitting there kind of dumbstruck. Mm-hmm. So then the cast of the movie, the cast of characters just are like, okay, and they drive on. And I like this part, because we get a title card that says 92 minutes later.
Yeah.
And they're just, our heroes are sitting around on a log, and then the van comes back again.
This is a good bit.
Yeah.
had me rolling a good bit when it first happened.
Yeah.
Especially just the, like, if you think about what they're in and their situation, that, like, they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do, but then every, like, roughly 90 minutes, this van comes rolling up, blasting Mickey as loud as it can, and then they stop and repeat the same lines to them again and again.
And Duncan, the horror nerd, is already clued in on what's going on. He sets his watch, timer, and then, again, another 92 minutes come by. Same thing happens.
See, horror fans are in the know. He knew before everybody else did.
That's right, yeah.
And that's the whole thing of the Randy character. That's like you have that knowledge. So you apply that to your situation.
So when the van stops again, they ask for a ride to Camp Bluefinch. That's what it's called, Camp Bluefinch. And so the kids pick him up, and in the van are Kurt, played by Adam Devine, I guess you pronounce his last name as.
Yes.
And he's your typical horny jock type.
Oh yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. And then we get Tina, who's a typical ditzy hot blonde. And I'll just say right now, the MVP of the movie.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
She was also in Halloween 2, or H2, Rob Zombie. Like, that was one of my favorite parts of that movie. Was her.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
Angela Trimber.
Okay. Who else? Okay. So then they're talking to them, because they say that they're counselors.
There's one more, isn't it? It's,
Well, I think that's the only people that they see at the beginning. But then Nancy... comes up from the back.
Yeah, she's asleep in the back.
Yeah. And so Max is seeing her mother in the movie as the character of Nancy.
Yeah.
Which has to be awkward.
Yeah. And then there's that cool scene where they drive through the opening title.
Yeah. I like that too, because it made me wonder, like, do they see that, or... I wonder.
I think they do. I got the impression they did. The characters in the movie don't, but our heroes do. So they're talking about, like, they're finally realizing what's going on. They were in the movie. They accept that pretty quickly.
Right.
And they're talking about, how do they get home? And Duncan says, it's 1986. We don't have any homes yet.
It leads to a lot of other questions, too, because I was like, what are the boundaries of this? If they just started walking in one direction, like, how far can they go?
Which they do address later.
Yeah.
It's like a loop, an infinite loop.
Yeah.
Just killer.
But movie's one big Mobius strip.
But yeah, Duncan comes up with kind of the obvious plan, which is, well, we just have to follow the film to its conclusion. So we just let it play out and kind of stick to the final girl. And when the killer dies, the movie should end, and theoretically we can leave.
Right.
Which is as good a guess as any, I guess, in that situation.
Indeed. Pretty solid plan.
And so the first kill of the film, which is such a great throwback to camp slashers, is you've got one of the characters that was already at the summer camp. She goes out into the woods, and she runs into a hiker who's passing through. It made me think of, it's one of the Friday the 13th where there's just like a dude who's just out there hunting for Jason for no reason. Is that part 4?
Part 4.
Yeah.
Part 4.
Yeah.
Not for no reason. He tried to avenge his sister's death.
It's weird
which was apparently 2 days before.
It's weird to just rock up there like that.
That guy had the funniest death in the Friday the 13th franchise. He's still killing me. He's killing me.
Oh my God, he's killing me.
See, I think that's actually effective, but that's me.
I love it. But yeah, they kind of like flirt a little bit. They're into each other.
Yeah.
They start to hook up, and then that's when Billy rocks up to kill them.
Yep.
And Duncan's just too curious to see it happen firsthand, so they kind of linger to watch this play out. Which is amazing.
Which would be cool to do. I mean,
like, think about virtual reality and stuff. If you could, like, be in the movie.
Yeah, what kill would you want to watch?
Sleeping bag kill, of course.
Oh, dude.
Uncut.
Oh, and they also apparently hear the apparently it's non-diegetic music.
Yeah.
For, like, Billy's theme.
Which is very Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they hear that and they're like, what was that? Yeah.
But they linger a little too long because Billy notices them. And this is where Duncan doles out his next theory, which is that they're safe because he won't know what to do with them because they're not part of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wrong.
Very wrong.
And then he's positing that perhaps this is all like special effects and stuff. And he's like, I bet this isn't even real blood. Yeah. And he goes like, take off some of the blood of the girl and taste it. He's like, oh no, it's real.
But I love this because he gets into like a stare down with Billy where he just like tromps over to him and is like towering above him. And you think like, oh, any moment he's just going to lay into him and kill him. But instead, Billy just kind of turns and just walks back off into the woods.
Yeah. And Duncan's like, hey, see, I told you. But then machete comes flying out of nowhere into his side. And I like how they just all scream and run off, too. Yeah. And this is where they're running, and they just come right back to where they were. So they establish that there's no way out of this.
Right. They have to play it out.
Yeah. So then the next time we see them, they're stuck in the middle of a horrible sing-along in the cabin. Singing, like, Christian tunes on the guitar and stuff. And Duncan had said that Paula is the final girl.
Mm-hmm. Which she arrives late to the camp as part of the plot.
Yeah. Yeah, we meet her pretty quickly. She's...
played by Chloe Bridges.
Yeah. And...
she's a total badass.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's like the cool and tough one.
Mm-hmm. Leather jacket.
Yeah. Cool car.
Awesome, like, big hair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She really did a good job. She looked like the 80s.
Yeah.
But she doesn't strike me as an 80s final girl, though.
No, it's more of like a 90s vibe to her, but...
yeah. Yeah, I think she is what the final girl sometimes turns into.
Yeah.
Because she gets tough at the end, you know?
Yeah.
It made me think
like
of...
maybe Alice.
Yeah, Alice was who I was thinking
Street
of.
4, yeah.
When she, like, subsumes everyone's powers.
Yeah,
and...
she knows martial arts and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I know Kung Fu. Let's see. Okay, so then they decide, okay, we're going to try to make every character in this movie be good and survive.
Right.
You know, not to have sex, not
Yeah.
to drink or anything like that. So that should increase their chances, they think.
Right. Well, let's subvert the trope of this film.
Mm-hmm. And
so they kind of make assignments where it's like, you follow this character, you follow that character. Let's all split
Make sure
up.
they don't have sex, yeah.
right. And Angela Trimber plays Tina.
Yeah, they tie her up with, like, mittens.
Well, there's a great scene where she thinks that a smartphone is a cassette.
Yeah.
She's like, where are the holes? She like puts the whole phone in her mouth at one point.
And Gertie gets paired up with Blake, which is one of the characters that's already at the camp, played by Tori N. Thompson. He has a great vibe where he's got these like buttons all over his suspenders.
Oh, right, yes.
Totally a like Friday the 13th style character.
He has a lot of flair.
Yeah. And they kind of bond a little bit while they're hanging out.
Starting to hit it off. Let's see. At one point, Max goes into the cabin, and she hears Billy's theme and knows Nancy's about to get down because Nancy told her earlier that Kurt wanted to have sex with her.
Yeah,
and she was
it.
still a virgin, and
It's
she
her
was
first time.
Yeah, and that's what her character does in the movie, which is why she dies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which we've seen that scene, like where he comes into the bedroom.
Yes,
It played out while they were watching, and then
right. So Max runs up there to stop her. And, of course, Kurt shows up thinking he's going to have a threesome now.
Yeah.
There's two chicks in the room.
which only summons him faster.
And Gertie's downstairs, and she sees Billy outside of the window.
Mm-hmm.
And says they have to tell him about Billy. And then Nancy starts recounting the tale in the classic slasher fashion.
Dude, I love this part.
There's a really cool scene. Yeah, it's like the movie starts kind of like dripping. Like there's like this viscous fluid coming down, and suddenly we're in a black and white flashback, and it's the tale of Billy. And they're all standing there in black and white, and they can hear the voiceover of Nancy, and there's like this superimposition of the summer of 1957 in front of them that they can clearly see. I think one of them steps over at one point.
Yeah, they do.
And then we see Billy getting burned by the fireworks, and he's obsessed with getting revenge. He's carving his masks to plan his revenge.
That made me think of the Rob Zombie Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a cool little element.
And we were told that he kills 8 counselors and still waits in the woods to kill any counselors who come around.
And so then we flash back to reality, and everyone kind of starts flipping out.
Yeah, because there was a scene in the movie where someone gets killed and some blood splashes on Gertie. Mm-hmm. And when she comes back to the present day, she's covered in blood and they all freak out and start running around.
And in a panic, Kurt and Paula hop in her cool ride, and they're just going to drive out of the camp.
Yep.
And that's when we learn that Duncan is still alive.
Yeah, he comes stumbling out of the woods, holding his side.
Which I love, because when you think about that scene, like, it just kind of nicked him in the side. It's not like...
Yeah, it may not have been a killing blow, sure.
But they hit him, immediately kill him again.
He's dead this time.
And then that makes the car veer and crash into a totem pole, killing all of them.
Yep, Kurt goes flying out, hits the dirt, and his legs break and everything. And, the car explodes, and Paula's still inside
Which
it.
the outtakes later on, when it shows that scene, what
Yes.
he was saying, it was so funny, dude.
I wish those had been
Go
in
to
the
the
movie.
hotel, have a little sex.
The police are going to get us. Let's fuck first.
He is like a laugh riot in this film. I hate that he dies this early just because like he's so funny.
I was really unfamiliar with him. I guess he's a well-known actor and stuff, but I thought he was hilarious in this movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He was great.
So all the movie characters are starting to realize that they are movie characters.
Mm-hmm. Which that's a whole existential crisis to go through.
Yeah. So and that's when they tape up Tina with an oven mitts and a life jacket. Because they say, you're scripted to do a striptease at the slumber party.
Yeah.
And that's when Billy shows up and kills you.
And you can see it because she's kind of wanting to, because she's like reaching up to her shirt and wanting to undo it and stuff. But so they have to construct a new plan now because their final girl is dead.
Yep. They need a new final girl. Who are they going to get? Who could be the new final girl? They say they need a virgin, and Max is the only one, apparently.
Yeah.
And they say they have to get Billy's machete, like Duncan said, so Max can kill him. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying about the book.
Right. Yeah.
The whole emasculation thing.
Right. They take a phallic-like weapon and then use that to slay the killer.
She appropriates the killer's penis.
Yeah.
Yes. Makes me think of the Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah.
Those covers with the big drill, highly phallic, and leaving nothing to the imagination.
Nothing subtle about that at all.
Great. Those are great movies. I love the second one especially. Nancy says that she can do it because she's still a virgin. Mm-hmm. And Vicky says something about how she can't help because she's not real.
Yeah.
Not a real person. Yeah. And at this point, the movie struck me as saying something about women not having their own agency.
Oh, yeah, like they're just scripted to die and they don't have any choice.
Yeah.
Huh. I can see that.
I don't think it really follows through on that, but that was a thought that it perked in my head anyway, and I wish it kind of tugged to that string a little bit more. But then again, that could just be me.
But at the same time, Max is kind of formulating her own plan because if everything Duncan has said is true, when they finish the movie, they can go back to the real world. And so if Nancy survives, theoretically, she could go back too, and she could have her mom again.
Yeah.
Weirdly. Yeah.
In a weird way, that's her mom, but not her mom.
Mm-hmm. And that's when they put the plan, Operation Booby Trap, into motion.
Very Home Alone.
Yes.
Yeah, we get a great montage of them getting ready, which reminded me of Nancy in Elm Street.
Yeah.
And she's have
The big finale.
that apparently took 10 minutes. But she does all these activities that would take me at least 3 hours, but it's just been 10 minutes.
That's why she's the final girl, and
Right.
we're in a basement talking about horror films.
Hey, it's a cool basement, though.
It is a cool basement.
Thank you. Yes, we're not as cool as Heather Langenkamp. This is true.
Yeah, we had to delay recording so Chris could be in awe of the basement.
And then all I was, man. Perfect recording space.
Thank you so much. Here at Genre Exposure headquarters.
And we get a little bit of character development during this whole setup for the final confrontation. Gertie and Blake kind of start having a thing for one another. You can tell there's a little bit of romantic tension between them. And the scene I really liked a lot was that Vicky talks to Max, and they kind of sort out the weird like drama they've been having against one another. And
Right.
Vicky kind of actually apologizes for the way she's treated her and kind of bullied her a little bit.
Yeah.
And we get this little bit of a backstory drop that they used to be best friends. But then when Max's mother died, she kind of became this like recluse and really pulled away from everyone. And then the next friend she made was Gertie, and she kind of clung to her.
Yeah.
And Vicky just, tells her like, "Hey, I kind of got jealous of your all's friendship, and I wondered like why you just left me behind."
Yeah.
Which is weird because their friendship is very believable. Sometimes those movies you don't like buy into their friendship, but they have
Right,
a very
right.
believable friendship. All three of them, I thought.
Yeah, it felt natural, and then it's cool because they all hug it out there in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. And we've all been there, especially when you're a teenager.
Oh,
you just drift apart from people.
Yeah.
And Vicky says that she's the mean girl in the 80s horror movie, so she's going to die next. Oh, and this is when Tina gets into Vicky's Adderall.
yeah. She mentions that early, like before they go in the movie. I think it's when they're at the theater. She mentions having an Adderall, and then Tina gets a hold of it.
She's like gnashing her teeth, and she's fucking hyped. So they're all getting ready to execute this plan of theirs. So then we hear some classic 80s. Actually, I think it was early 90s. But anyway, they use Warrant's Cherry Pie.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
As the song. So then they let Tina do her thing.
She gives the strip tease to end all strip teases.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. And as soon as she opens up her shirt, we see Billy standing outside.
Yeah, I love the way they frame that shot, too. That it's like, you think you're going to see it, and then it cuts to him.
Yeah. Which is disappointing, I gotta add.
Well, it is. We should say this is a PG-13 movie, actually.
And that's when I'm going to level one of my complaints. I think it should have been an R.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that to fully talk about slasher films and parody them or whatever, you have to go there.
Yeah.
Now, we need a little bit of nudity. We need a little bit more violence.
I guess I'll throw this in now, because another note I have... originally, it was planned to be an R-rated film, and the studio kind of talked them down into PG-13. And their big argument was that that would give them more time to focus on the emotion and the relationship that's kind of at the core of this movie, which I think is good and is done well. But I also think like that doesn't exclude having the R-rated, the gore, the kills, the nudity.
It's not an either-or situation.
Yeah.
You can't have both.
Yeah, but it is what it is.
Sure. I mean, it's still a very enjoyable movie.
It's one of the better PG-13 horror. I do not like PG-13 horror.
Yeah, I'm with you
It's
there.
one of the better ones.
Yeah, it really depends. It depends.
This one gets it right, I think.
Yeah. So Tina sees him and freaks out. But she trips over one of their own traps, killing herself. It's like a bear trap that she falls into.
Pretty gnarly.
That's pretty funny. They unload a log into Billy's chest like a bunch of Ewoks.
Yeah.
And that kind of pins him to the door.
Well, there's like deer antlers, right? On the door?
Which again reminds me of help me out here with Linnea Quigley impaling the antlers.
Oh, Night of the Demons. No,
the Christmas movie.
Saw Not Daily Night.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
exactly. Made me think of that.
I also immediately think of Night of the Demons when I think of Linnea Quigley.
My mind goes straight to Return of the Living Dead. If I hear Linnea Quigley. But she's been in so many classics. So he's kind of stuck on the door. And Blake goes to get the machete, but Billy stabs him. And then they start firing flaming arrows. They're like marshmallows on the end of arrows set aflame at Billy. And then there's actually kind of an effective scene where Gertie and Vicky are trapped under a bookcase. Yeah. And he starts stabbing through it.
Well, they have this whole plan where they're supposed to lure him upstairs into that room while everyone goes out the window, and then they were going to drop the bookcase on him. And
douse him with gasoline.
It got stuck on that.
Carrie style.
Yeah, and it gets stuck.
Yeah. So, and like he's stabbing Gertie, and Shawkat does some really good screaming here, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
Like she sells the fact that she's getting stabbed, and you feel like sorry for her.
Yeah.
Which you normally don't in slasher films.
And Max kind of hesitates because she doesn't know what to do because this is way off script now. Mm-hmm. And they literally tell her, like, go. You can't save us. You just have to go and finish the film.
Yeah. So they're out the window, and Vicky's pulling on that rope more. She's still trapped. And the gasoline rains down on Billy, and the room pretty much explodes.
Yeah. And then, like a fucking awesome killer, he explodes out the window on flames and just lands and is ready, let's go.
Yeah. And then they all realize they're also in slow motion.
Yeah.
Because they're talking like this. But yeah, that is a cool scene where he jumps out of the window in slow motion.
That to me is like the Jason just stepping through the door moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get some pretty cool 80s inspired synth music here too, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
That stuck out to me. Yeah.
Overall, like the score in this film, it's pretty subtle, but like it's really good when you notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're pretty much trapped by Billy, and they tell Nancy to start telling the story of Billy again, so they can go back into the flashback before they're killed.
It'll buy them time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Billy gets taken in on the flashback as well, And they're back in the 50s again, and then that sweet car pulls up and hits Billy, and they grab his machete. So then they're watching the scene where Billy's leaving the outhouse, and they're kind of following him to part of the camp that Nancy's never seen before.
Mm-hmm. There's a weird building, and Nancy says she doesn't know what this is, and she never really comes to this part of the camp.
Yeah. Could it possibly be his Jason shed?
Again, you get those Friday the 13th vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But in that chaos there, Max gets stabbed, right? I'm pretty sure.
Let's see.
Because then Max gets stabbed, and then they kind of pull back and retreat.
Yeah, they tell the flashback story again, and they leave the flashback, and Chris gets wounded, and Nancy is carried off by Billy.
Oh yeah, she has to go get Nancy back.
Yeah,
first,
so Max is helping Chris find refuge in this really luridly lit Argento ruined church.
Yeah.
It's really leaning
Pumpkinhead.
in. Oh yeah, Pumpkinhead. All those shafts of light coming out of nowhere.
That's a great comparison. Yeah. And it makes you wonder, why is this so close to a camp? It's very weird.
Gotta love Pumpkinhead.
Me too.
Oh, fuck, yes.
Yeah, it looks like an Argento movie all of a sudden too, with all the lights, all the colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then Max, she's going into that building from the flashback to find Nancy, because she figured out that's his hideout, Billy's hideout. And all the bodies are there too. Another classic slasher trope.
Yeah, she gets she runs into every single one back to back in quick succession.
I wonder if that's what they collect. We collect Blu-rays. Maybe the slashers collect bodies.
They just collect bodies, gather them around.
Oh, this one's got a slipcover.
This one's near mint. So they start fighting, and that's when Billy stabs Max with a knife.
Because they kind of play with the formula now, because now you think that she's injured, it's going to fall to Nancy. Mm-hmm. But together they both manage to escape, and they retreat back to the chapel to link back up with Chris.
Yep.
And this is where Max finally has a heart-to-heart with Nancy and reveals that, you are the character that my mother played in real life.
Which had a lot of heart.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Dude, for a horror movie, I was like, am I getting ready to cry?
Yeah, I agree. It's very touching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting a little misty-eyed, and Tiffany's...
When the music hits, I was like, don't look at me.
Tiffany's like, what are you doing? I was like, it's just allergies, you know?
It's that season.
I'm not crying, you are.
No, but it does have a lot of heart, and it's really executed well.
Yeah.
And, I give a lot of props to Malin Ackerman, too, as Nancy,
She's good.
I've not seen her in a ton of stuff. I mostly know her for the Adult Swim show Children's Hospital, where she's fucking hilarious. But
that's right.
She really does good on the emotion in this film.
Yeah.
I loved her in Couples Retreat, where she was Vince Vaughn's wife.
I think I saw that.
I know the trailer now that you bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and Nancy's she says that she has to let her go so she can save her. Mm-hmm. And Nancy goes out, and we hear Betty Davis Eyes playing, from before. And she starts to strip to summon Billy. And,
Would she?
I don't know. Is it kind of weird that she's watching her mom strip? I mean... I know girls are different about that sort of thing. It's not a big deal for them to be naked.
It was a plus for me.
I'm not complaining.
It would be weird, I guess, but that whole situation's so weird.
At that point, you're in a movie, you're with your dead mom, but not really. Yeah. We kind of glossed over it, but I do want to back up.
Yeah.
Before they die, I think it's before he dies, Blake and Gertie do share a kiss.
That's right.
There's that part where she's just screw it.
And smacks one on him,
Fun little coda to their
their
thing.
So Billy shows up, and I like that scene because Nancy is looking at Max, and Max is looking at Nancy, but Nancy's back is to Billy.
Yeah.
So Nancy knows that Billy's there.
Yeah.
But she doesn't see the stab coming.
But then the second it happens, that's when that switch flips.
Yeah. Yep.
She Max not only just picks up the machete, but she kind of flourishes it.
Oh yeah,
she knows what
she's badass doing. Action girl now. Yeah, and she has a fight with Billy and chops his head off.
What I like about it too is it's not like she doesn't just run up and like kill him.
Yeah, there's back and forth.
There's a little bit of a fight. Yeah.
Right.
She does that cool like slide where she.
Yeah. I love that part. Yeah.
But she does manage to best him. And then there's that great scene where they see the credits rolling up on the horizon. I like that a lot. Because Chris limps out and they're watching the credits roll.
They share a kiss, right? Yeah.
Yep. And Max wakes up in the hospital, and she finds that all of her friends are alive and recovering. Even Duncan.
Yep.
He shows a gnarly wound that's been stitched up.
And this is another one of those things where they kind of like switched gears, because the original idea is it was just going to be her and Chris in the hospital, and that's it.
Oh, yeah?
And I guess when they tested that idea, they thought it was a little too bleak compared to the rest of the film. So then they pivoted to this one where everybody's okay. But then there's that extra twist that we're about to talk about.
Yes. And we see that Max is still wearing the friendship bracelet that Nancy gave her, too.
Yeah.
But then they hear Billy's theme playing again. And they're like,
hospital.
Oh, shit.
Another iconic slasher film.
And they look outside, and they're like, all their heads are poking out like Three Stooges or something. And they're looking out into the hallway, and they're seeing like a doctor flirting with a nurse outside.
Major, which Friday the 13th is it? No, it's Halloween, isn't it?
Halloween 2?
Halloween 2.
Halloween 2.
In the hospital? Yeah. Duncan gets worried because we see a can of Tab, Rubik's Cube, and a Gizmo doll. And I realize that we're still in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then we see Billy breaking through the glass doors, and the title card comes up, Camp Bloodbath 2, Cruel Summer. And Duncan says that the sequel is always so much cooler than the original.
It was a double feature that they went to.
Yep. And then it ends.
Sadly.
What a sequel hook.
But and I see it now that you mentioned the whole test screening thing, because I do like this ending, especially if we get a sequel.
Which we were supposed to. Like, it's been in works for...
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah,
it's been way too long.
Which sucks, man. It would be a good sequel.
But also the fact that no one really dies kind of removes the element of danger.
A little bit, yeah.
And then you're like, well, what about the sequel? If no one really dies, then where's the danger?
Agreed.
So it's kind of it probably actually works best there isn't a sequel.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have to address that.
But you just want it forever.
Chris, you mentioned those outtakes that are in the credits, which are fucking hilarious. But there's one shot where it's the Kurt character, and he's in the hospital in a wheelchair flirting with one of the nurses. And apparently that was an actual thing they were going to do for this sequel that's never materialized, where in the like lore of these Camp Bloodbath films,
okay.
supposedly when they shot the first one, they loved his performance so much that they cast him again in the second one and kind of came up with an excuse for why he didn't die.
He didn't really. He's broke his legs. He didn't really die. Yeah.
So if there was that sequel, he would be in it still.
That's fun.
Which is hilarious.
That'd be pretty good. Let's see, what notes do I have about this film?
What? You have notes?
I do have some notes.
Holy
I have
shit.
some notes.
A lot of first times on this episode.
So I sometimes have notes. But the script was bought by New Line Cinema in 2011. But obviously they did not produce it. But, I mean, New Line Cinema, obviously, the house that Freddie built, you know.
Hell yeah.
So it's the perfect place for a slasher film to be made. Maybe it's a good thing they didn't do it. I don't know. I mean, at that time, New Line was kind of like... but the screenplay that was bought by them was written by Joshua John Miller and M.A. Fortin. And Miller is the son of Jason Miller, who was Father Karras in The Exorcist.
Here we go. It's all coming together. And I'd read that, I guess he said this in an interview or something, but he actually came up with this idea while dealing with the death of his dad.
Yeah.
He was kind of struggling with that idea and stuff. And I guess the thought of like that he could go and watch one of these movies that he was in and how surreal that is.
Yeah.
Which I think they conveyed very good in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that there's something haunting, strange, confusing, and a little bit unnatural to see your parent constantly die in a film.
It's wild.
Yeah.
What else you got, Jason?
I got the fact that it was made, it cost about $4.5 million, but only made about $1.5 million. And it never really got a theatrical release. It played like festivals and stuff.
I think that's part of the problem. If they had put it out, I think it would have done well, especially...
It would have made $10 million at least.
If you're putting PG-13 on it, that expands the range. That's usually why they force PG-13.
That's why it's right, exactly. Yeah. It makes no sense if it's not theatrically released. So I don't know why it was never released.
It was a really weird like Blu-ray release as well. The only reason I found it was because I went and bought I think Pumpkinhead on Blu-ray.
Nice.
And Hastings had like a coming soon like little thing, and there it was. But there was no like big like hoopla for when it was released, physically either.
Yeah, I think I read a review of it somewhere, maybe Rue Morgue or something back in the day that turned me on.
I think the first time I ever knew about it was just like on Shudder or whatever platform it streamed on first. I saw it kind of scrolling through, and I was like, "Oh, this seems neat." Watch list, and then I never watched it till now.
Yeah, it's like all my friends, we watched it together, and they all liked it. But I've never really heard that many people talk about this movie.
Yeah,
I don't think it really got its due.
No, it did well with like the Blu-ray collectors. I remember whenever it came out, everybody picked it up, and it was just one of those weird things where it was just like when you watch, like, it's great, but there was no like theatrical release like you said for it, which really hurt it. Mm-hmm. And it was a cheap Blu-ray too. For them, it was like $10 when it came out.
Oh wow, that's sad.
Yeah.
This deserved like a lot more fanfare, I think, especially at a time like 2015. Like, what was going on for slashers at that time? You had Muck coming out for one.
I think there was still that kind of slasher renaissance going on.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Friday the 13th was dead at that time. Halloween was dead at that time. Nightmare on Elm Street's still dead right now.
Yeah. Where is that?
I'm okay with that. If that last movie is any indication of what we're going to get, I'm fine with it being dead.
I would just like a nice physical box set, New Line Cinema, of Nightmare on Elm Street, please.
Nice 4K set.
Yeah, even if it's Blu-ray, just something.
Yeah,
something.
I agree.
The DVD set's the best one that they've. I like the old VHS where he's got his arms out, but the DVD set was the best one they've had out for it.
Yeah,
and like the Friday the 13th Blu-ray. Yeah. That's what we need for Nightmare
Freddy,
on Elm Street.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think about this movie? What's your thoughts? I guess we should go first before Chris, since you brought it.
I have a few more notes.
Or should he go first because we know that... you have notes.
Yes. I wanted to focus on some of the improvised things because there's so many, and it's crazy how like much of this film is like made better from what they did. So Tina's dance sequence, all of that was improvised. They just put on the music and let her go.
Oh, she's so good in this movie.
And she said that she slammed several energy drinks to get into character and into the mode of doing this dance for that moment. Once she takes the Ritalin and she goes all like hyper focused crazy, her like looking around at the bug that was flying around the room. She ad-libbed that, and then they put the sound effect in.
Oh, nice.
To make it work.
She's great. She is the MVP. She steals the movie.
There are some ideas that they kind of cast aside from the script. So in the original script, the characters from the real world, they actually started going through transformations once they entered the movie. It was going to be things like the girls kind of got more curvier and shapelier, their boobs got bigger.
That's pretty good.
And there was a subplot where Gertie was kind of enamored with this because she is sort of kind of like more of the meek girl of the group.
Yeah.
And there was going to be a subplot where she kind of tried to sabotage their efforts so she could keep being hot.
I like that.
Which I'm glad they took out because that's a weird turn for her character.
It's weird, but it's funny.
Yeah. I also think like it would have called for a much bigger budget to pull off.
Yeah, it also sounds more like maybe something if it was like a limited series or something, like a TV show could get away with that.
This is a really funny one. So the script said that when the cast enters the film of Camp Bloodbath, they step into a Technicolor world. And so when they showed up on location to do the shoot, the writers were horrified because what the crew had done was read that and took it literally, and they went through the entire area and put all these artificial bright colored flowers everywhere.
Right, which we do see.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, this is a little too much.
A little too Wizard of Ozzy.
Yeah, and they kind of made them peel that back a bit. The camp that they shot at didn't have a cabin large enough for all the stuff they wanted to do. A lot of those big stunts with the booby trap scene, they had this camera crane they wanted to use, and they couldn't actually get it like in there to film it. So instead, they had to erect it from scratch.
They should have just made a human pyramid.
Oh, we can't all be one cut of the dead. But,
no.
But when they finished, there wasn't money to tear it back down once they built it. So they actually, during construction, made it structurally sound enough that when they were finished, they just was like, here, camp, you have a new cabin.
Oh, nice.
That's cool of them.
Yeah.
Let's see. A lot of call-outs, again, like with the names, we hit most of those along the way. The song that the counselors are singing after the first murder is Michael, Row Your Boat Ashore, and that's the same song from the pre-credit sequence in the original Friday the 13th.
Yes.
And then also a lot of them are wearing yellow shirts, which is kind of an homage to those like yellow rain jackets. that Camp Crystal Lake has.
They also had yellow polos, didn't they, in the beginning?
Yeah. Let's see, what else? Oh, this is another one of the ad-lib things that I thought was actually kind of important. So it's during one of the moments where Vicky is fighting with them, and I think it's when they're trying to decide who can be the final girl, and they mention Gertie, because I think Vicky's like, oh, Gertie, you're a loser, you can't do it. And Gertie feels like, no, I slept with someone. And it goes into this thing about it being...
Her stepbrother.
No. Only in your fantasy.
You're stuck.
Oh, Michael will be pleased. But no, it's supposed to be another kid at their school who's autistic. And Vicky kind of makes like a snide remark about that. And then Gertie like steps up and defends it. And she's like, well, no, he's actually very romantic and he's a nice person and da-da-da. Apparently in the script, that whole scene was a little more mean-spirited. And when the actress kind of read it and was preparing for the scene, she was like, hey, I have a problem with this. Could I just like make my own dialogue and kind of change it a little bit? And they were like, yeah, sure, let's just shoot it your way and see how we feel. And when they did it, they were like, no, this is better. You're right. We're going with your idea.
Okay.
So I thought that was cool.
That is cool.
And in general, through the whole shoot, they encourage them to do a lot of like, if you have an idea or a thought that you think would be cool, like just try it, we'll shoot it and see. And a lot of their improvisations were used in the final cut, especially a lot of Adam Devine's stuff with Kurt, which he, again, Chris, you said he's a laugh riot in this film.
Hilarious.
I like it when they are collaborative like that.
Yeah, I think that's most of the like central things. We hit most of the good ones along the way. Like The Burning is a big influence on this film for sure.
Love The Burning.
Yeah, so I think we're good to go to final thoughts.
Awesome. Well, should Chris go first since he brought it and we know he likes it?
I'll go first.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, where are you at on this film?
Well, obviously I love it. I mean, there's a lot that goes into, like, my memories with this film. Like I said, I'm very nostalgic. So, you know, like, sometimes when you watch a movie, everything is just perfect. You know, it's like the food you're eating, the day. That movie, when I watched it, was just like, it was one of those kind of times where it was like, I would even say like top 10 like best movie experiences at home.
Like the moment itself, yeah.
And it was one of those, you know, sometimes you watch a movie and it's just the right time. You know, like I don't remember specifically, but I'm pretty sure that movie came out pretty close to when I had, like when It Follows it came out. The Babadook, it's definitely when I watched them. So it was a nice break from those like real like heavy psychological horror movies I was watching.
That was kind of the birth of that new like, I'm going to say it, Jason, elevated horror. And so this is a good like throwback.
Yeah, it was a fun, you know, it was one of those kind of movies where it's like, if I'm in the mood for a horror comedy, it's nice to know that I got The Burbs and I got, you know, like The Final Girls I can watch, you know, like a twofer.
I love The Burbs, by the way.
Oh, man, me too.
I don't think Jason so much, but...
I used to skip school to go watch that dude. Like, when I was in 4th grade, I had so many sore throats just because I wanted to go home and watch The Burbs. But
that's hilarious. I love that. I do remember seeing that in the theater.
But please continue.
But yeah, it's just one of those kind of movies where it's like, I know it's not perfect. It's got, obviously it's got issues. But for me personally, it was just that right time. Just a fun, you know, it was like right at the beginning of like my full-blown collecting of like, I always collect the movies, but that was one of the first like blind buys, we'll say, that I went out and got. So,
which is a big deal. It always feels great when you make a blind buy and then you turn out to love the film.
Yeah, it pays off.
There are very few times where I watch a movie where I'm like, I gotta tell everybody about this, and that was one of them. So it was like I championed that movie. It was one of the first ones I did. So
nice,
killer.
I love. I think I gave it like a 4-star on Letterboxd.
Solid.
No.
Well, you're on point because I was going to set up. We do the Letterboxd ratings, but you got it.
All right. Cool. Nice.
I'll go next.
Okay.
We're on around the table here.
Sure.
So I want to get comparative to Muck to talk about this a little bit because 2015 they came out the same year at the same time. These were both happening and going on, and I think if you compare these two films, what happens is it really shines a light on what a turd Muck is as a movie. So this isn't a perfect film. You're totally right about that, Chris. I'm with you 100%. Like, the times they use CGI are kind of egregious, and they didn't even really need to be there. And the car crash is like, oof, that's really rough to me. It almost feels like when it starts to flip, it's a different frame rate or something. And
yeah, there's something weird going on there.
It really looks bad, and I wish they had done anything different, whether they cut the camera away or something, anything. And it's weird to me, too, because in the later part of the film, they do a practical car crash
pretty good.
Yeah, really good when Paula and Kurt run into the totem pole.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe it was just a budget thing, I'm sure, but still, it's like you did it right once, so why can't you do it the other time? I don't know. And there were some things that are kind of just like weird narrative elements. Like I don't think cigarette ash would ignite like that with alcohol, but that's a little contrived. But it's like I get it. You needed a fire in the theater to make it happen. So.
Yeah.
And then my only other like real criticism thing is the rating, the PG-13. I get why they did it, but to me, like if you really want to make this love letter to slashers, you need to go like the whole step and lean into everything else. Like I think if it was that R-rated and there was more gore and everything else, like that would almost just knock it up to a perfect film for me.
Yeah,
'cause I did love it so much, but like it's just an amazing love letter to the genre. I know last time I said Muck was kind of trying to be like a throwback love letter, and it is in some ways, but this manages to like pull at your heart. And if you've ever loved slashers, loved 80s horror, classic horror films like that, like it will pull at you and like really draw you in and give you those, like you said, Chris, nostalgic feelings where it's just like, it fills you with this warmth and appreciation. I really loved that all the characters had a lot of depth to them. Because that's one of the like criticisms of a slasher film is that like, oh, the characters are disposable and they're throwaway and they don't matter. But there is a lot going on here. Like Gertie's got some good depth to her, even as a side character. Her interest in Kurt or her interest in Blake, and then like the whole like the autistic kid story thing. Vicky, the way they resolve her like mean girl story, and there's like an actual like reason behind it that they resolve. Even the Chris character, who's kind of like the leading guy. One of his ad-lib scenes is in that final moment when it's just Max and Chris, and he kind of brings up, he's like, hey, Max, are you scared about doing this? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And he says, well, I am. And that was ad-lib by him. He wanted to throw that in to actually give his character like some vulnerability, that he's not just like the tough guy that's just like there to back her up or anything. Like he's in this moment, and it really humanizes him in a lot of way where he's not just the leading guy or like the love interest, which is cool. One film, I don't think we've hit it yet talking about it, but one it reminded me of a lot was Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Classic.
That kind of has that same like meta concept where like you're in a slasher story, but it's more of like a real world orchestrating into being one instead of actually like entering a movie. But they had this, it made me think of that film a lot because it has the same vibe where it's like very comedic, very aware of all the elements of what a slasher is. And it both leans into those, but also it goes kind of meta and subverts those in ways that's like interesting and entertaining. I would love to see a sequel. I guess we're probably never gonna see one, but
no.
It is what it is.
There'll be a remake before there's a sequel.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: for this era of horror films and especially slashers, it's a stone cold classic. You need to see it if you haven't. If the Blu-ray is still cheap, definitely it's a pickup.
Very cheap. Yeah.
I loved it start to finish. Other than those few little nitpicks, and I'm right at a 4-star.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way you guys do about it. It has its issues. It's not perfect. Like, it should have been R-rated. Because, as you say, comparing it to Leslie Vernon, which is a good comparison.
Oh, that one is R-rated, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it also works as a slasher film. Whereas this doesn't really work as a slasher film, but if it went a little bit further, it could. Yeah.
I guess it's maybe more of a comedy.
Right. It doesn't necessarily need to work as one, but I mean, why not? You know, you could do both.
Yeah, why not both?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the cast is great. The acting is good. I like that it's actually a heartfelt story. It's smart. It has all the slasher tropes. Even if you've never really seen a lot of slasher movies, they kind of walk you through it and you get it. It's not going to alienate you if you're not a big horror fan.
That is a good point to bring up, I think, because it's not like you have to already be steeped in it to appreciate it.
Right. I do think I like the outtakes, but I think they should have waited a few beats before cutting to it. I think they go in it too fast.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of kills the mood, but...
Man, they're so funny, though.
Yeah. They are funny. They are good. It's definitely worth seeing. I think I've said all my other critiques of it. I think it is a lot of fun. I like what it has to say. I love the movie within a movie feel of it. I give it 3.5 stars.
Oh, For you, that is quite a high regard.
I picked a good one.
Yeah, no, it's definitely.
Congratulations, Chris. You're now in the Legendary Hall of Fame for genre exposure.
Yes, you have Jason's approval.
I have one little more thing before we do our wrap up.
Yeah.
I thought since this is the final girls, and we're talking about final girls, and we talked about the idea of the final girl.
Sure.
I want to know what your all's favorite final girl is.
Ooh, okay.
And you might need to think about it for a moment, so I guess I'll knock mine out first.
Yeah, go for it.
To let you guys stew on this. So for me, there's only one, and it has to be this one, and that's Jenny Field from Friday the 13th Part 2, played by Amy Steele. I love the angle of her as like this psychology student, and it's played very well for like a basis of all the actions that she takes throughout the film. She has this super strong presence, and she just like drips this charisma every second you see her on the screen. Like you just love her immediately the second you see her, and how smart she is, how resourceful she is. The fact that she kind of intuits this connection between Jason and his mother, and has that idea to don her sweater and pretend to be her. That's such a legendary slasher moment. It's just so iconic. And then the fact that like the second they roll up at the camp, she knows something's not right, and she's already like on about that before the kills even start racking up. And when we talk about final girls, she's in it. She does it herself. She's victorious and makes it away and lives to tell the tale. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, when you talk about that as a franchise, like a lot of people focus on Alice because she is the first one.
Sure.
But Alice dies at the start of the sequel, and that kind of
wearing some sort of weird baby jumper
muddies up the water a little bit. But Jenny did it. She survived. She killed Jason, and she gets to live on. And I really love Tommy Jarvis a ton. And I think it's cool that he kind of is like the Laurie Strode of Friday the 13th, and we have a final boy, which is its own cool like switch of everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, but to me, Jenny is the Friday final girl, and I fucking love her.
Yeah,
that was my first thought. Was Amy Steele. Would you like to go, Chris?
Favorite final girl? That's a tough question.
Yeah. I maybe should have told you guys in advance, but
I'm glad you didn't though.
It makes you think more honestly.
Makes you
Give me your raw reaction.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a huge
horror fan.
What?
Unless they're stuck. I'm not a huge fan of Final Girls. If that makes sense. I've always been more. It's like I've always been more about the monster. I mean, I love Halloween, but I love Halloween because of Donald Pleasance's portrayal of Dr. Loomis. It had nothing to do with Laurie or Jamie Lee Curtis. No disrespect. But if I had to pick one, it would probably be Neve Campbell. I always liked her in the Scream movies as Sidney Prescott. I remember when Scream first came out, I think I was knowledgeable enough with horror to recognize how important that movie was, especially now looking back how it saved horror and changed everything. So I always liked her in the Scream movies. I thought that she was, you kind of got to watch her go through high school, and then you got to watch her go through college, and then you get to watch her go through what she went through in Scream 3 in Hollywood. And then in 4 and stuff. But yeah, I think Sidney Prescott has been or Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott is my favorite final girl.
Which she's such a strong character too.
Yeah.
Just
very relatable too.
And you sadly weren't here for Muck, but we talked about that last time, that in Scream, like a lot of the earlier slasher franchises, they are more about the killer than the characters. And with Sidney Prescott, they really changed the game on that because she is the through line on that franchise.
Dustin misspoke. You were lucky not to be here for
I'm going to go home and watch Mike just so I can.
All right. Since I will not say Amy Steele, since you picked her, I will go with my second gut guess. Instinct would be, I mentioned her before, but Alice. Lisa Wilcox from Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5.
She is my favorite Elm Street final girl.
Yeah, because just much like Amy Steele, she beats Freddy and survives. And goes on to live, I'm sure, a happy, fulfilling life. And there's something very relatable about her character, especially in 4, when she's all mousy and kind of withdrawn and stuff. And
you see her make that change.
Yeah, what horror geek doesn't relate to that? Who doesn't feel like that every once in a while?
And she's gorgeous. I'm just going to throw that out
she's
there.
gorgeous. And she was also in Star Trek The Next Generation.
Wow. You had to get it in. One episode.
So yeah, that's my pick. Alice.
Killer. I love it. That's a good trio, I think.
I think so too, yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. Chris, thank you so much,
thank
man,
you guys
for
for
joining
having
us.
me.
It's a
been
pleasure
nice.
to have you. Thank you. You'll have to come back and visit us again.
For sure.
Yes. Now that you've done it once, we'll drag you in more, I'm sure.
Be happy to, man. That was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
For next time, before we do our wrap-up, what's coming up next? It's your pick, Jason.
Oh, God, it's my pick. Okay. Well, we did 2 2015 movies.
Which I love it because every time we do these, we end up accidentally making connections.
Yeah.
So I didn't even tell you anything about what I picked, and then you picked one from the same year
Yeah.
that couldn't be more different.
Couldn't be more different. Not at all.
So where are you taking us, Jason?
I want to go back to the golden age of slashers. We're going to go all the way back to 1981.
This film kind of sets that up.
Yep. And I want to talk about the movie Bloody Birthday.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've seen this one.
Okay, good. Excellent. Have you seen this one?
I have not. But 81's one of the best years for horror movies ever.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. I could tell you where you can watch it.
Please.
I know that it is on Arrow Video.
Oh.
Let me see where else it is. I think this is one of those that's like on Tubi and shit like that.
Tubi, man. They're saviors. You
Yeah,
gotta find
here
that
we
weird movie.
Yes, it's on Tubi.
Hell yeah.
It's on Arrow. It's on Screenbox. Or if you want to pay for it, you can rent it from Amazon.
That's another score for Screenbox.
Yeah. Should I tell you the synopsis of this movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hit us with it.
In 1970, 3 children are born at the height of a total eclipse. Due to the sun and moon blocking Saturn, which controls emotions, they have become heartless killers 10 years later and are able to escape detection because of their youthful and innocent facades. A boy and his teenage sister become endangered when they stumble onto the bloody truth.
It's an interesting premise.
Your voice is so captivating.
Thanks, bro.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Jason is our star talent on the show.
Oh God, we're in trouble.
Well, listen, man, Chris, where can people find you if they want to go look you up after this?
Right now I'm just doing TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah, TikTok 4K Outlaw.
I'll make sure to put it in the show notes.
I actually have to get TikTok now. Damn it.
Lots of physical media stuff, trying to keep it going,
Nice.
Killer, well, go follow 4K Outlaw, show him some love, check out what he's doing.
He's fighting the good fight, people.
Thank you.
keeping physical and media
keep
alive.
it alive. Every format that I can. Started with beta, now we're at 4K.
That's right.
Well, hey, if you've seen The Final Girls, write in. Let us know what you think about it. We want to hear what you think. Tell us about how much better it is than Muck, for sure. You can hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Email us at genreexposure@gmail.com. I have the stickers in, and I'm beginning to manifest a list of people to mail them to.
Nice.
If you would like a super cool Genre Exposure sticker, give us a movie recommendation to watch, and if we cover it on the show, I will send you a sticker. Mm-hmm. Completely free, completely voluntary, too. If you're like, I don't want these weirdos to have my address, that's totally cool, too.
We promise we won't show up at your house in the middle of the night.
Once I rig up that list, we'll be in touch with our prior submitters, and yeah, we'll get rolling on that. It should be fun. It should be
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
We need more suggestions. Always more suggestions. Feed the beast.
We hunger.
We hunger for more. But all that being said, Chris, we love you, man.
Man, we love you, dude.
Thanks for coming on.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.